You gave a striking example of a young man who was restrained after continuing on the telephone for longer than the permitted time. Strikes me that the same end might have been achieved by pulling the plug out of the telephone. Was that incident recorded in the way you described it, or did you have to go through the process of evidence taking and triangulation, as you put it, to achieve an assessment of that event?
I don't know the answer to that particular incident. I will be able to find it out and go back to that particular. I believe it was recorded, but I can't tell you for 100% certain. We'll have a record of that ourselves.
You said that the use of forcible restraint, including pain compliance, remains higher than it should be. Why do you think that is? Why, despite our inquiry, the two wise men inquiry, various criticisms from yourself and your predecessors, why do you think it is that the system still uses restraint to such a significant extent?
Well, I think that first of all, my sort of general experience in this and in other fields, with police, for instance, is if you give people a power or a technology or a technique, they'll use it. And they will, it will grow, and then it becomes normalised. You know, the most powerful guide for you as a member of staff about whether you are doing the right thing or wrong thing is what your colleagues are doing. And that's not necessarily how it should be, but I think that starts to happen. So I think the use of force becomes, as I say, normalised. And then I think that I also think it's important to say that I'm sympathetic, on the other side, I'm sympathetic to the view that with the reduction of the numbers of young people in custody, there is an argument that says it is a more challenging group, and therefore one might expect there to be more incidents of that kind. I don't completely go along with that, but I think it would be, I think there's some, I wouldn't rule out that providing some of the answer.
We take it as a given that the somewhat reduced population, which I suppose by definition involves young people who have committed more serious crimes, is a more challenging group in custody. Is there any empirical evidence to support it? Has it been researched?
No,
or is it just something we assume?
I think, as you say, the dangerous is taken as a given, and I'm not saying, that's why I was cautious in my answer. I think it would be an assumption that needs, it would be a view that needs checking out, but I wouldn't say, I said no evidence to support that view. I think the other point I think is, I mean, what strikes me coming into this area fairly new is you say, your question was, why does this go on? And everybody say, ourselves, the various inquiries are saying, it shouldn't. Well, actually, I think our messages are a bit ambiguous about what we say. And I think that's part of the reason. So, if I take the example of techniques that do the pain compliance techniques, I think if we are saying, well, look, in some circumstances that's okay, right? That's a very, that I think creates ambiguities around our whole message about the use of force. In the other circumstances in which we would say it's all right to hurt children. Or if you take some of the new and kind of welcome guidance from the YJB about strip searching, which is saying strip searching should only be used on an individual, following an individual risk assessment, except when young people are coming into an establishment for the first time, the numbers may make it necessary to strip search everybody. So I don't think our messages are as clear as they need to be to give staff who are working in very difficult and challenging situations the sort of clarity of guidance that perhaps they need.
you mentioned properly the staff, and we have to think about the staff very hard and recognise the difficulties that staff work in. On behalf of some, though not all staff, it is said that there is no alternative to using pain-compliant techniques. That is not part of your written evidence. Why do you disagree with the proposition that, as a last resort, one has to use pain-compliant techniques?
Well, I would say two things to that. I mean, one is, partly I haven't worked in those settings myself, so I pay a lot of attention to my inspectors who do have a lot of experience in that area, who would say there are other techniques available that could be used more effectively. But I think, if I might say so, we're getting this the wrong way round. I don't think it is for me to show why using pain against children isn't necessary. I think it's for those people who do advocate that position to show beyond any doubt at all it is absolutely essential and no other technique can be used. Right? And so coming into this, as I say, relatively new, without to come axe to grind, all I can say is in the time I've spent doing this, no one has presented me any clear case as to why pain compliance techniques are necessary, and giving examples of situations where other measures couldn't be used. And I think the obligation is for the people who advocate that to show why it's essential, rather than for me to say, well, it's not. I'm not really debating for it, but it's where the balance should be.
Your inspections, I mean your inspectors' inspections, I know you don't do them all yourself, are certainly not snapshots, they're more like albums of what is happening at a particular time in a YLI. But they are only albums of what is happening at the time in question. Do you have any comments to make upon the opportunities that young people have to report incidents that are of concern to them, make complaints, and at the extremes have a quality of justice that is available outside the custodial setting?
Yes, I think, as I said back at the start, an inspection is an album, if you like to call it, but it is only a moment or period of time. I recognise the limitations to that. I think you need a whole series of safeguards for young people in those situations. I think there is a role for monitoring boards, certainly in my eyes. I think, and I would like to see the strengthened and help to improve. I'm interested in the work that advocacy services are doing in institutions, and I think it's important that they are genuinely independent from they are working on behalf of the young person rather than on the institution, and it's important that's clear. I think there will always be a difficulty. I think it's important there is a good complaints process in place that's age appropriate. Often it's not, but I think there will always be limitations to that. And so it needs to be, I think people ought to have recourse in law in the same way as they would if they're outside the establishment. And I think it's important also that staff feel there's a culture of staff where staff feel they can raise concerns at an early stage about how other people are behaving before it becomes a crisis. What you need, I think, what often happens, and this was true in police and other settings I worked in, if staff feel there is an environment where they can challenge people's behaviour and that's accepted, and they do it early enough, actually that becomes a culture where they're protecting it, where they are properly protecting their colleagues because they're stopping people getting in too deep. If you have cultures where people feel they can't challenge, people see bad behaviour, bad performance go, they don't challenge it until it gets to a kind of crisis point where the jobs of prosecution are on the line. So I think all of these things, proper staff cultures where people feel they can challenge, proper independent advocacy services, monitoring arrangements, inspection and good management, all of these things come together to safeguard young people who are extremely vulnerable. I think that's what we take on now. In a closed institution, a young person who is vulnerable for all reasons that are well documented anyhow, will lack credibility often because of their age or their offence or whatever. They are in a very vulnerable position. If a young person who is in custody, because they committed an assault,